Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is January 9th, 2025, and this is an MSP Initiative MSP Talk. Hopefully, everybody's past your do no work time and actually back to work because I don't think I got do no work time, but that's okay. Everybody's different. A little bit cold here. I'm in upstate New York, Saratoga Springs, to be specifically, clear today. I was told I had to say that by other people in the room. But anyway, definitely getting the year started a little chilly, but on the right foot. MSPinitiative.com. This is where we park all of the stuff we do, podcast listing, our YouTube page, a calendar of events for the year for the whole industry as far as we've known it, the upcoming things that we're working on for 2025, as well as a bunch of other things. So check out mspinitiative.com. And I believe for the very first time, in the entire history of this podcast, we bring on someone who's been on, I think, as many planes, trains, and automobiles as anyone else that I know. She might be fighting some of the top performers there for mileage, traveled. We'll see what her mileage is. I might poke her on her estimate for 2024. We bring on Brook Lee, now with Liongard. But before we talk about any company stuff, and I just recently learned this not long ago, Brook has a really long personal journey through IT MSP land. And I think we should hear about it because I didn't know how far it was, and I was until I got it, and I was like, "Wow, you did that? What? Huh?" So I don't want to steal on your thunder, Brooke. Tell us, give us a walk down memory lane. Tell the people of the internet your history here.
So I started in IT when I got out of college with a degree in computer science. It was not what I thought I was going to do when I was in school. I always wanted to be a lawyer because I love to debate, argue, and I'm always right. So, I mean, I was like, this is just a natural job for me. It'll be great. Um, so got into college, and then I thought, you know what? I am not sure I want to do 8 years of this. I need to pivot and do something different. So basically, I went to my advisor and I was like, hey, I don't want to stay on the pre-law track. I need something else. I don't think this is something that I want to commit to for the next 8 years. At that point, this was probably 1994. So I'm aging myself. So everybody knows, do the math, you can figure it out. And she said, you know what, computers, IT, that's something that's really sort of up and coming. And she was like, there's not a lot of girls in it, so it might be a good fit for you. And I was like, okay, great. So pursued that path, got out of college, went to work in internal IT for probably the first half of my career. A lot of network server admin type stuff. I worked for a pharmaceutical firm, worked for a giant oil company out in Kansas, worked for a flight safety company here in Savannah, did all kinds of different stuff.
Time out, David Tulip. How important is debating and arguing to you, Brooke? Good. Good. Yes, David. Thank you.
I would tell people I've had plenty of arguments at the lobby bar after events. Love to get into spirited debates, especially about the MSP world, because that's where I've been for so long. Yeah, so always down for a good spirited debate over a good kind of pint of beer.
All right, so back to the history. A lot of an oil company, a bunch of stuff.
So did that for a little while. I took some time off to have kids, and then I needed to re-enter the workforce. And as probably any woman that's in this space will tell you, when you get ready to come back to work, nobody gives two flips about what you did before. You pretty much have to start over from scratch. So I ended up, I had some really not super great jobs. Again, that'll be a night for a lobby bar and a pint of beer. But ended up finding a role at an MSP here in Savannah. And pretty much had to start from scratch. They had some openings, and I said, hey, I can do this, I can do that. They were like, yeah, lady, that's really cool. How about you answer the phone and make copies and coffee and all that good stuff? And I was like, it's better than the job that I have, and I just need to get my foot in the door. So did that. So started there. I ended up at that MSP for about 10 years. Moved up from that role to tier 1 to tier 2. I was a field tech, ran cables through the crawl spaces, up and popping ceiling tiles, troubleshooting stuff 2 o'clock in the morning. Back in the day when everything went down, you could not fix it from the house. You had to get up out of the bed, get into the vehicle, and ride to wherever your client was at and go into that lovely network closet. When I left there, I was the VCIO. We were a fairly large MSP, probably one of the biggest in the southeast part of the state. Had a great time there, learned a lot. There was a gentleman that I worked with there. He started a consulting firm, and then I joined him. It was just he and we grew that company to probably, I want to say 12, 13 employees. That was probably one of my most favorite jobs because we rebuilt MSPs all over the states. So from super small 5-man shops, the biggest one that I worked with was probably 150 people, and I probably hired half of those people. But you get to meet some amazing people. All the MSPs, yes, it's very similar, but they're all different. Everybody's got something that makes them special, makes them a little bit different, whether it's their clients, sort of what services they provide, things like that. And I learned a ton during that consulting time because, again, I got to do everything from fixing ConnectWise, Brightgauge, IT glue, hiring, firing, completely rebuilding help desk service departments, documentation, processes, all that kind of stuff. And it was really fun. I loved it. Again, I learned a ton. And then I moved into this space probably about 2 years ago. Went to work for my first SaaS company, which was PIA. They're based out of Australia. Everybody kind of knows them. They do automated ticket resolution. Then I went from there to ScalePad, and then ScalePad has a suite of products that they provide. And then at the beginning of this year, I was lucky enough to join the team at Liongard, and that's where we're at today.
Wow. I mean, I got all sorts of questions that come to mind, but
Yeah.
listen, I had an MSP for many years, and I'm actually at the tail end of actually finally shutting that business down after 24 years. I rolled into vendor land, and I'll tell you, the second I was able to work with other IT companies, other managed services companies behind the curtain, trying to, help them accomplish something, that we were trying to, make them more efficient, fix workflow, that kind of thing. You get to see the cleverness of a lot of people, right? Especially like, as I was going over borders and across oceans, and you're like, well, this can't be the same, business, in the US as the UK, for example. No, it very much is, right? They may look at things slightly differently, and they may use slightly different, names of things, but at the end of the day, still the same business.
Mhm.
And there were some really, and are some really clever, intelligent people out there in this sandbox, I like to call it. I had, you did a lot of consulting, sounds like. And
It did.
like,
I absolutely, I got to meet some really amazing people. I got to learn a ton about different types of MSPs. At the end of the day, what I did learn and what I tell people all the time, there's only two things that make your MSP different. It's the people that work for you, and it's the people that you work with. It's your clients and your employees. That's it. Everything else can be purchased by anybody else in the world. We can all have the same stack. We can all have the same tools. We can all have the same firewalls. There's literally nothing else that differentiates you other than those two things.
wow. And I got to be honest with you, Brooke. I mean, I read the same surveys that everybody else does. 20 plus years later, the same top 5 concerns of MSP seem to be the same damn thing,
Seems to be
right?
the same thing. So I agree, and then I think there's also different levels of it. Some of the things that we have the issues with. I mean, everybody's like, how are we going to be more efficient? That's always a fight that we're going to be fighting. We are always going to want to be as efficient as possible because I think that's just the nature of IT people. We are big, work smarter, not harder. And it's not because sometimes we think we're the smartest people in the room. It's just we know how much stuff we have to get done. How can I get it done faster so that I can move on to the next thing? So that efficiency sort of like debate that goes on, I don't think that's ever going away. I think that's something that we're always going to be striving for. And I think that's part of the continuous improvement that you need to have at your MSP. So you always need to be looking at different ways to be efficient. And there's going to be sort of like where you get that tipping point of where you're being efficient, and then when have you gone over the point of where you're trying to sort of over processize everything, and then it's gone too far. So now you've done that, and you've hindered the people that work for you to be able to be clever, come up with solutions, because at the end of the day, that's what I pay them for. Yeah, you got to reset passwords and everything else, but at the end of the day, I'm asking you to figure out difficult problems and come up with solutions. So how do you sort of make that balancing act of being efficient, making sure I have processes, procedures in place, but allowing your engineers and your techs to be able to have that sort of a little bit of autonomy to come up with ways to figure out the problems that we have. So I think the efficiency battle goes on forever.
Yeah, I mean, but back to your point, you said at the one place you did a lot of the hiring. I mean,
Yeah,
hiring and retention is still in the top five concerns. Profitability is still in the top five concerns. Liability, right, and taking on too much risk, top five concerns. Like this is stuff I was seeing in
it's one that I get
2000,
like,
2001 too,
yeah,
right? We're in
hiring I get into
2025.
big arguments with because I always think that's I'll argue with somebody at the bar on that one. Because I don't really think there's an issue of talent. I think you have to go find it. You have to know how to find the talent, how to look for the talent. And some of this is an MSP, you've got to be a certain size. How do you cultivate the talent? Because I tell people there's literally nothing we do in this space that I can't teach you. If you don't know how to prep a firewall, I can teach you how to prep a firewall. If you don't know how to spin up a 365 instance, I can teach you how to do that. What I can't teach you is to have the aptitude to learn and have an attitude to what I call give a shit. You have to be willing to give a shit about your clients, their problems, take them on as your own, and say, I'm going to own this. This is a problem for them. It seems small to me, but whatever it is causing this person to not be able to work. That is my problem to own. And how can I help this person figure it out? So if I can get aptitude and attitude, there's literally nothing that I can't teach this person. So hire for that. I also think we still have an issue with culture. I think retention is a problem because culture is a problem. There's been a lot of MSPs that I have worked for, worked with, helped, and I lovingly call them meat grinders. They literally just take a tech, grind them up, spit them out the back end, and then go get another one.
So
And
for everyone else, right, we use the word burnout. This is like it's pretty prevalent, I would think, in the sandbox, to be honest.
Absolutely. I mean, I see it a lot. I've seen it a lot. It happens all the time again. And it's when you break it down for how long it takes at an MSP, the ramp up time to become productive as a tech, even if you're a tier 3, it takes time. You are not going to literally plug somebody in and they're going to start being productive and earning back, their W-2 out of the gate. It's going to take time to learn because they don't know my clients. You can know everything about 365, everything about a FortiGate firewall, but you don't know my clients. You don't know how they're set up. You don't know their infrastructure. You don't know their software. All of that is different and you have to learn it.
All right, so let me ask you a question right there.
Okay.
What is a reason, like, anywhere in the United States, like the rubber stamp is 90-day probationary period, which I argue is way too short, right? Like, but in this industry, what's an adequate amount of time to get from hire to functional? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it what is it?
So some of this I think depends on the level of the tech. If I'm hiring a brand new kid, fresh, he's green, doesn't know anything, it's probably going to take me 6 months to get that kid even to where he's going to feel comfortable working some tickets. If I'm hiring a tier 3 and I'm paying that guy north of $150, I'm going to need him to be pretty productive fairly quickly. So that guy, I'm probably like 2 months. If you talk to a lot of MSPs, they're going to be like day 2. Because they're like, hey, here, sit down, here's your login, have a nice day, answer the phone, which is what happened at the first MSP I was at. And you're literally your second day there, you're answering the telephone, putting in tickets and trying to figure stuff out, which is a recipe for disaster. And that's that meat grinder, that's the high turnover, that's all that type of stuff. So I would say for somebody who's more green and doesn't know a lot, I'm going to give them a lot more runway because I want them to learn. I want them to be comfortable. I want them to shadow with a ton of people. I want them to feel like when they sit down to work those tickets, they know what they need to know so that they have that confidence. Because not having the confidence, then they get in this thing that I call the ditch, and then they can't get out. Because you're like at an MSP, I see it over and over again. You're zooming along, you think you're hot, you know what? I'm like whatever, and then you hit a couple of bad tickets, couple of bad projects, couple of things that go wrong, and you get in this thing called a ditch. Your confidence takes a dip. You're like, am I as smart as I thought I was? Do I really know what I thought I knew? And you've got to get them to come out of that ditch. And that's part of the MSPs, that's their responsibility, whether it's the service manager, the director of ops, whatever their manager supervisor is, to sort of help coach and cultivate them out of that and get that confidence built back up. But I've seen a ton of engineers get in that ditch, is what I call it, and they don't make it out. And then they end up quitting. They go to another MSP. And again, it's a fresh start for them. So then, hey, here I am. I'm hot. You know what? I've done a year at Georgia's MSP. I'm going from a tier 1 right to a tier 2. That happens all the time. So if you don't promote or at least give people a path, after about a year, I would do it. I'm at tier 1. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to start as a tier 2 because I'm going to show up at somebody's door with 1 year of MSP experience. I'm going to have my resume built out like nobody's business. And now I'm going to start as a tier 2 and make more money. So you got to make sure you have that path, but getting them out of that ditch, that's what you've got to do to keep people again at your MSP, because when we have to train them, and again, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is that we're not making the money back or ROI on this person, all you're doing is you're going to do it all over again.
Yeah.
Invest the time in that person so that you don't lose them, because then again, you're starting from scratch and I got to go find a person and I got to hire them and I got to start all over and we got to train them on all this stuff. And again, it's just rinse and repeat versus getting some really good people hired, cultivating those people. Again, making sure when they take that little dip in the confidence that we get back out of that, give them some things to do. I'm big on getting them to coach other people that are under them. Again, because then it's like, if I've got a new guy coming in, yeah, this is how we do things here. Let me show you the ropes, whatever. Again, that's an immediate confidence boost. And that's how I can help kind of get them elevated up so that they get their confidence back so that they can go back doing those, the stuff that they want to do, which are the projects and the tickets.
There's a lot of nuance in what you're saying. I got to be honest with you. I was this person, right? Like soul tech turned business owner, realizing that they can't do it by themselves, eventually hiring people behind them. I just don't think they have they're too busy in the day to day to like pay attention to a lot of the things that you're talking about. And like, there's a lot of value to what you're saying. I just think that they're, like this.
And that's why I kept getting a job as a consultant.
No, that's fair.
Because again, it's working through those things and making sure that it's not a hit to the owner, because clearly they started this business from nothing, college, whatever it was, provided some services, grew it to where it's at today. But what are you really good at? And then let's hire people for the things that you're not good at. And a lot of times it is the people piece.
Yeah.
I'm really great at tech. I'm really great at business. I've built this company. I'm a great salesperson, but I'm not really good at people. So let's go hire somebody that is good at people, that can cultivate your staff.
Yeah.
Again, get them where they need to go. And again, build that culture of the company that you want, because again, and it's not a hit on that person. It's just, what are you great at? What are you not great at? And then let's go find somebody that's great at what you're, what is sort of, we need to fill in that gap.
I agree. Let me go for another topic that kind of intertwines with your path now on the other side of the aisle, the vendor side of the aisle.
Okay.
So on one side, you're consultant, Brooke. On the other side, you're representing software company, Brooke. But in between is the MSP who I've seen it. I still see it. It's like tool, shiny object swiper syndrome, but then they never actually implement it. And then 6 months go by, they're paying a bill for something that ultimately they're not using. And then, or there's a different picture, right? I have so many tools.
Yep.
It's just overload, right? Like I almost don't have time to manage the house kind of thing.
And as a consultant, that's one of the first things I do is a tool check, because that's an easy win for me, for the owner. So if I come work at your MSP, I'm going to do a tool check. I'm going to evaluate everything, and anything that only one person can use and it's costing me a lot of money, it's out the door. We're going to go. And then I'm going to go, George, look at all the money that I just started saving you like day 3. And then you're going to be like, holy smokes, she's staying for a little while. We want to keep her on board. Again, it's just, and that's in general what almost all consultants do. We immediately want that win. Let's reevaluate all the tools. So because I have the MSP experience and because I'm now on this side, one of the things that I do when we go to events or I'm doing webinars or I'm talking to MSPs, any of that type of stuff, is I ask a lot of questions and I do a whole bunch of listening so that I can learn about their MSP. Because what I won't do, and you can ask anybody, I absolutely refuse to sell you a product that I know you're not going to be able to use. If you're a 5-man shop and you are the owner, the VCIO, the tier 3, the project engineer, whatever, and you're telling me, hey, Brooke, I want to go get X, I'm going to be like, dude, you know what? That's really cool, but that's not going to be a good fit for you. You need to look at why. You are not going to be able to get this up and running. It's too much of a heavy lift. You're not going to be able to implement it, to your point. Next thing you know, you're going to be mad. You've been paying me for 6 months. You're going to be talking about, oh, Brooke, she's blah, blah, blah. She sold me this, yada, 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 and it's not working. And then you're going to go hop on Reddit and just really light me up. So I have no desire to do that. So that is why I am really, really particular. And I've been very fortunate to work with companies that are okay with me doing that. Because again, if I know you're not going to be able to use this product and you're not going to be successful with it, that is the absolute worst thing that I can do. Why in the world would I sell you something if I know you can't use it yet? For whatever reason. One time it was a good MSP. They were really, really big. They probably had 50 total staff there, really good revenue. I mean, they had the money to buy the product. They were in the middle of switching their PSA and their RMM. And they were like, hey, Brooke, let's go. And I was like, that's cool. what we're going to do is I'm going to get all your information. We're going to let the dust settle on this PSA and on this RMM, and I'm going to have somebody call you in about 30 to 60 days. We're going to check in. We're going to see how you're doing and see how we look. And then at that point, we're going to decide if we're ready to take on a new tool or not. And they were like, well, Brooke, I want to buy it today. And I'm like, that's really cool. I'm glad that you want to buy it today. This is not going to work because that particular product was going to require heavy lift. So now you're going to do 3 things at one time. Your engineers are going to hate you. This is going to go badly. They're going to dig in their heels because they already have to change. If we're changing PSAs, I got to change how I put time on tickets. Everything is a little different, a different checkbox here. I got to put my time entry here. I've got to do, make sure the agreement's added over here. All that stuff is going to look completely different. RMM, again, heavy lift. So that's why I told them, have a nice day. Here's my card. I'm going to call you boys in about 30 to 60 days, and then we're going to see what we can work out. So I think that's where I really find my niche in this space of talking to the MSPs, listening, asking the right questions, and then figuring out what's going to fit for them. And then are they going to be successful? Because at the end of the day, that's the key, is if you can't use the tool successfully for whatever reason, maybe it's not me. And I always say, I know a guy, which is a generic sense, but if it's not me, I know a guy. Let me go talk. You need some VoIP stuff. Okay, let me go introduce you to George. Let me go introduce you to Bob here and here. Talk to these 3 or 4 people. They have the tool that you need, and then talk to them, and then you can make a decision. Or if you need something else, let me go introduce you to Cynthia over here. Her company has something that might be a good fit for you if it's not me, or if I know, again, that you're not going to be successful with what you're asking me to do. Again, listening, asking the right questions. And part of that comes from all of the consulting and the different sizes, shapes in the MSPs to figure out kind of how I can help sort of bridge that gap. Even if it's not me, let me help them go find something else so that you're not just chasing, to your point, the shiny objects at every single show that we go to.
Yeah, and by the way, if everybody in the space took your approach, I think a lot of boats would rise together, kind of thing. The whole all tides rise, kind of all tides rising boat, cliche. But how do you help? And I'm coming back to your consulting, kind of angle here, but like the industry tends to every 3, 4, 5 years pick up a new marketing term and just put it on a billboard, right? First it was cloud, and then it was cyber. Pick a word behind it. Let's just call it security. Just be, but I've seen so many companies. Oh, we're cyber this, and it's like, what? Cyber McDonald's. What? I thought you flipped hamburgers. And now, the whole AI thing seems to be front and center, right? So everybody seems to follow the coattails of the big guys who are burning a lot of marketing dollars. Microsoft's up there and everybody else. So I feel like from a maturity level, most MSPs are not going to succeed at the bleeding edge.
Nope.
Where things are still not formed and very wild west, but they all seem to follow it because they're seeing it everywhere. How do you advise people to adopt new things to offer to their customers?
So some of that's going to depend on their client base. If they have some particular verticals, some of those things are going to be, we're going to have to get not on the bleeding edge, but we're going to have to head that direction. The thing that I would say probably right now is the most prevalent is compliance. Because pretty much every single company has some sort of compliancy that they're going to have to adhere to, whether it's HIPAA, whether it's banking. I mean, everybody's got to have something. Even if you're saying, oh, well, I go talk to my client and they're like, yeah, we don't have any of that stuff. You still need to be under something, even if it's CIS, because you're going to have to maybe get some cyber insurance, or your customers are going to ask you for something because they're going to have to fill out those cyber insurance forms that we all love and hate to fill out because they're 27 pages long. So I would say those are one of the things that I'm seeing that pretty much every MSP is going to have to get on board with. And again, get on board is, do you just need to get CIS and have some sort of a tool or something to help you in a very small fashion? Or do you need to be sort of all the way on the other end for some of these larger players that are out there in our space that really have some stuff where you're going to do, a virtual CISO or compliance as a service or something like that. So I think that there's a wide berth on that one, but that's the one that I've seen recently that I can get on board with. I mean, the whole, like everything that's like the AI stuff and everything else and all these acronyms that people want to throw in, the compliance one is the one where I think everybody really is going to, I mean, like it, love it, or hate it. And one of the gentlemen that I worked with at ScalePad, Dan Fox, he gave a speech and he was like talking about you can't wait on the government regulation to happen. They're 10 years behind everything. And by the time you wait on it and then they ask you to do it, so many things have happened in between. So now is the time to try to, sort of figure that out. So that's the one that I feel that we really need to try to push people towards. Again, even if it's the very small one, or like I said, depending on your clients, if you've got to go like full blown and you have the staffing for it, but that's the one that I feel like is in everybody's wheelhouse in some form or fashion, and you're gonna have to do it. Like I said, otherwise you're just asking for trouble at this point, I think.
Yeah, there a lot of arrows are pointing that way for sure. I think part of the concern is like I was just talking to a couple people down, in Australia and New Zealand, specifically Australia. Like they've basically picked a compliance standard as a country, right? And said,
Yeah.
hey, we're doing ISO 127,000, whatever. And,
Yep.
like that's our standard. If you have it, you're there. If you're not, start going there. But like here, it just seems like you could trip over them. I mean, like there's not
I
one.
know. And so that's why I think you've really got to partner with somebody that's going to be able to help guide you, because there's so much out there, because we haven't done that here. So that's why I think a lot of people recommend the CIS framework, because again, it's a self-audited one. It's sort of like a baby step. So if I need to do something, let's at least get that one done. It's easier to get done. Again, you can do it yourself. You don't have to have somebody come back and audit you after. But I agree. I mean, I think, but that's part of, we don't want to tell people what to do here. We don't want to like put down the band hammer and say everybody's got to have this, particular type of compliance framework. And then therefore that now means that we have, I don't know, 50, 60, 100 frameworks. Who the hell knows how many we've got out there now? And how do you pick? So that's where I think in our space, in the SaaS space and the channel space, is to really make sure that you're partnering with good people. And that's why people like you and I, if it's not me, let me go find you a couple people that I think are experts in this space, and let's get you pointed in the right direction. So that way you're not just looking at like this gigantic bucket of software companies that provide all of these services. Let's try to get it narrowed down to maybe like 2 or 3 that might be really in your wheelhouse, and then get you introduced to those people again, to try to narrow down those choices. Cause it just seems like you're talking about, I mean, it's just, there's so many out there to pick from. So, trying to work with people that you and I know and trust in the space, and then try to get that selection down for them to say, hey, these are some of the people that might be a good fit for you and why.
I'm gonna go to current events for 1 second because it came out
Okay.
just before this. Hopefully, I'm not blindsiding you, but so the CEO of Kaseya is moving to a board position. Sounds like
Saw
they're
that.
putting a new person in the chair. That's after I think a little more
Did
than
they
10
announce the
years.
new person that's going in the chair though? I
I
didn't see
don't
that.
know if they did,
Okay.
but that was a 10+ year run there. Okay. We at least on this side of the aisle, right, the vendor side in the sandbox, we all talk at the bar about all of the comings and goings of the bigs and all the things that are happening in the space, right? Like they're one of the big 2, 3 at the top, right? Can't let's not avoid it. Again, back to your consulting hat for a second. A lot of people get stuck into I think I was convinced in my early day, go best in class in each category, right? Pick the product that you feel strongest about in each place so that you're putting the best foot forward for your end customer. In comes the bundling wars, right? Where
Yep.
all these companies get acquired, they smash it together, they create a super SKU of all of these products, which may not be best in class in every category, but they're best in your price, for the MSP, right? How do you navigate that from your position?
So there's a couple of different ways to kind of slice and dice that one. So sometimes I think for a smaller MSP, it might be easier at that point if they have just started out to go with a bundle, because it's less for you to figure out. Everything is kind of all connected. Now, assuming that it is, so that's where you're going to have to do your due diligence and make sure everything is connected on the back end. So that way you can just sort of cherry pick what you need. You get one person to talk to, which is really helpful when you're small, to get like an account manager or something like that. That again, you have your person, is what I call it. So when you're smaller and you're not really ready to make those decisions about, is it best in class for here? Do I need to cherry pick this? Do I need to cherry pick that? Also, it's going to be less for your people to learn if everything is kind of in one bundle, versus if you're pulling from various ecosystems. You have to think about, that's going to be a learning curve for your engineers as you bring them on and you grow. So as you bring on new people, if you've got various things scattered about, again, I've got to go here to do this. I've got to go here to do this. This is where I get my training over here. I do training over here for this one. So again, there's a lot of different factors on that. So as you get bigger, you're obviously going to have the capability to be able to cherry pick and get best in class from various places. But that means that you're going to have multiple bills. So that means your finance person is going to have things to deal with. There's so many facets to, do you go everything in a bundle or do you do things on the outside? So again, I think kind of it depends on the maturity of your MSP, what's best for you, what's best for your employees. Our clients, I'm going to be honest with you, they don't really give a shit. They do not want to know what antivirus I'm using. They don't give a flying flip what firewall I'm using. They don't care. They just want to know that I've got it covered. They're going to be taken care of. I am making sure to the best of our ability that they're not going to get hacked, breached, any of that kind of stuff. They don't give a flip about anything else. So best in class for an MSP with 300 people and they've got 50,000 endpoints, best in class for a 5-man shop with 100 clients is going to be very different. It's just a different look. It's a different feel. So I think some of this is you have to figure out, where is the give and take? Do I want to make things easier for my engineers, for my finance, for everything right now and just, just tackle this and let's get into this with this? I mean, because let's be honest, you're not going to grow exponentially in 3 years. You're not going to go from a 5-man shop to a 250-man shop in 3 years.
Not without some sort of external thing going.
Again, you're going to have to merge with somebody. It's not going to happen organically. So, do you just say, you know what, we just need to get up and running. I need to have things that are, again, best in class. I mean, because even if you're in the bundle or whatever, none of the tools they have are junk. I mean, they're good tools. They do what they need to do. They wouldn't have purchased them otherwise. I mean, let's be honest about that. Some of them, yeah, they go out because they don't want the competition, but for the most part, they are buying tools that are successful. They provide a really good service. They have a gap maybe that they need to fill in their little, bundle package or whatever. And I don't think that Kaseya is any different than that. Yes, they are a gajillion-dollar industry, but they didn't get that way being dumb. And we can talk whatever we want to talk about all the bundle wars, but they are sitting at the top of the heap for a reason. I mean, they did things a certain way. You can like it, love it, or hate it. They are wildly successful. They have made a ton of money and they offer things to people because they have that bundle that some of us may not normally have had access to. So again, it's sort of like weighing those options and again, talking to people like you and I in the space and sort of kind of wading through that. And that's where you really need to ask questions to the owner or to the ops person of the MSP and kind of feel out what it is, what do they have, be able to tolerate, and then what is it that we really need to like fix that gap right now, and then let that kind of drive us to what choice we need to make.
That's fair. That's good. It's a good point of view for sure. And I definitely agree with you. End customer does not, like, if you say Microsoft, maybe they care, but Google, Amazon. Now, like, other than the household names that we see on the news sticker, outside of that, out of sight, out of mind.
They just want us to handle it. And honestly, I'm not going to talk to them about it. When I go do my QBRs, VCIO visits, whatever, I am not telling you what stinking antivirus I switched over to. I'm showing you the other stuff. How are we developing your roadmap for the next 3-5 years, whatever it is? We are not talking about your antivirus. We're not talking about how much RAM is in the computers that are on the desktops for the accounting firm. That's not what we're doing.
Yeah, fair enough. Unless it's CrowdStrike, because that's the
and then there's that.
I mean, bad news always travels faster than good news, right? I mean,
that it does, especially in this space.
That's a fact for sure. So my guess is you had a lot of places at your disposal to decide where you wanted to go to here. Why Liongard?
So one of the first things for me is always the tech, because I'm an IT person and I'm a geek. I've got to have like cool, neat tech that I want to go work with. This is a little bit different than anything that I've worked for. So I love that part because that means I get to dive in and learn something new. And the threat landscape pretty much changes every day. So I'm really excited about that. Probably some of the bigger reasons was a Cardi. I mean, she's a goat in this space, and being able to learn from her and work with her is a game changer for just about anybody. Joe is, he's incredibly intelligent. He is so passionate about Liongard that I love working for people like that. I absolutely do. I had a conversation with him in Orlando, and this was well before anything else was happening. And we were just at one of the networking events, and we were just, having a beer, talking or whatever. And the passion that he has and the excitement that he has for this company, for the people, for the product, for the partners, again, I don't know how everybody doesn't want to work for somebody like that, because that's the stuff that really makes me excited as a person. Another one of the things is they have a lot of diversity on their leadership team here at Liongard. And at this stage in my career, I tell people I don't chase money anymore. I chase leadership, and I chase like stability and the tech. And being able to see that diversity all the way at the leadership level. A lot of people are very diverse in the lower levels of a company, but seeing that on the leadership side, again, that's really, really important for me. So I would say that's probably the big three reasons why I came here.
Awesome. Yeah, I good people for sure. Let's talk about that for a second, because you know, if I've gotten anything out of this, guys, Brook really is in tune to people, right? That's a big part of the story. So you've now been at multiple companies on the vendor side of the aisle, right?
Yes, sir.
Very broad question. I'm going to throw it out there, see where it goes.
Okay.
What works and what doesn't work on that side of the aisle?
So what doesn't work if we don't have a clear vision that the entire company understands and everybody can get behind. That is, and I mean, that's for an MSP, but especially so I've noticed it in the SaaS space, because we have to pivot a little more frequently than when other industries. So making sure that we have a vision that, again, everybody understands, it makes sense to the entire company. And then again, you have a leader in the front, which is, you know, Michelle and Joe, and they're leading the charge, and they're like, this is where we're going. This is why we're going there. This is how we're going to get it done. And we're going through the wall first. That is what inspires people to want to be creative and do things for a company. And that is what I see work. Also hiring people sometimes out of the box, out of the wheelhouse. The first job that I got in this space was at PIA. And it was myself and Joe. We were hired by Coach for PIA, and Joe and I were not from the channel at all. He and I were both hardcore IT people. We had been in the MSP space forever. We're technical. So we were very unusual hires for the space. But he and I both latched onto it, and we immediately brought something to PIA at that time that other people didn't have, because they were not hiring technical people to work on the channel side of the house, especially not client facing, forward facing towards, you know, the attendees and everything that were coming there. I've also, when I was working at ScalePad, there's a gentleman there named Matt. He's in the marketing side of the house. He has sort of a philosophy on that, thinking about hiring people from different areas because they bring something different to the table. Again, bringing somebody that's not from the same side all the time, because again, you're just getting a bunch of yes men. You're getting this is the way that we've always done it, people. And if you ask anybody, I am the let's question the status quo girl. I mean, my first question is why are we doing that way? If you can explain it and tell me this is why it's successful, it does this is the ROI, whatever, cool, let's keep doing it. If I ask you and you're just like, well, that's just how we do it, then my eye starts twitching, and I'm immediately wanting to figure out a different way to do it, because is there a better way? Is there a more efficient way? Is there a cheaper way? Is there something that's going to make us be more cost effective as a company? Is there a different way that's going to bring us different ROI? So I would say I've had the pleasure of working for both of those companies and worked for a couple of people where, again, that philosophy I think plays huge dividends.
Yeah, no, I dig what you're saying for sure. From a strategy standpoint, right? What's the best way to get somebody on the MSP side to value what you do, you know, like actually pay attention to what you're saying? Because there's a lot of attention problems, and hate to use the example of the trade show, but like you got very small window as somebody walking down the aisle to actually hook in and pay attention to what you're doing, right? It's just a lot of noise happening, but just in general, right? And I would love you first to, answer the question, or in your response, answer the question, how do you get them to buy in? But also, secondly, here's something that I think I have it right, but I want to see if you think I have it right. I think that less than 10% of all the MSPs that exist in the world make it to an event once a year. Do you agree or disagree?
I don't disagree with that number at all. I think there's so many of them that they can't afford it. They're at the top of the food chain. They can't leave for 2 to 3 days. I would maybe want to see something on the 10% part, but I think it's a really, like you, I mean, 90% of them don't ever make it. I would say I would probably lean between 70 and 80, but I think it's a really, really high number. I think there's a lot of MSPs that don't ever make it to any of these events that we do.
Okay, so piggybacking on the first point, how do you get the MSP to take, to value what you do? But then also, how do you get to the 90% if they're not going to be in front of you? What's the strategy?
So I think there's a couple of ways to tackle that. The first one is obviously virtual, but you've got to have the right people in place to make that work. Because the last thing I'm going to do personally is sit through a webinar that's 45, 50 minutes and it's just dull as a butter knife. Hard pass. Don't want to do it. I also don't like the ones where, again, it's a risk. I like all of mine that I do. I do them live, like this one. I let people ask questions. A lot of people are really, really fearful of that. I think that's a huge misstep. People want to be able to talk to you, ask questions, even if I don't have the answer. Absolutely want to get that answered. Shoot me your email address. When I get off this call, I will go track it down and I will let you know. So having virtual webinars, virtual lunch and learns, whatever you want to call them, I think they can be wildly successful because it's like one to many. But you've got to have the right parts and people's, and honestly, you have to have the right personalities. Again, you can't have somebody that's just like reading off of a slide deck. Let's go through this together. Okay, that was really cool. Your call to action is to click on this link or scan this QR code and we're going to do whatever. I mean, no, nobody's coming back. They don't give a flip. This was boring. I don't want to do it again. So having the right people and having the right format for that. I really like the idea and strategy of going to what I call mid-markets. Because a lot of the places we do the same events in the same places. We go to Orlando umpteen times a year. We go to Dallas a lot. Nashville's a hot one. But there's a lot of other places where they are really tech heavy that we don't go. So what if we did something instead of spending a cajillion dollars at one of these tier one events? What if we split that money differently? Let's think about it differently. Let's go do a road show in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is a tech hub. Nobody goes there. What if we did like a little half day, 1 day thing there, partner up with some other vendors and do some cool lunch and learn thing? I think you'd be surprised who you could get to come there. So think geographically, because I think a lot of it is geography. It's we go to places that are really far for certain people to go to. So doing that. And again, to get people to listen to you, I would say one of the things that you and I probably do differently is from everybody else that's in the space is we listen and we ask questions. Again, I'm not sales. I've never worked in sales in my life. I talk to people when they come by the event, the booth, we're at the lobby bar, we're at a networking event or whatever. Just ask them questions. Hey, where are you at? Where are you from? What's your MSP look like? What kind of clients do y'all have? Oh, shoot, I didn't even think about those kind of people. Again, you just have those sort of organic conversations. And then that turns into, they kind of spill the beans on, man, we are really struggling with X, Y, and Z right now. And maybe I'm X, but maybe I can help them with the Y and Z by finding somebody else that I know because we know so many people in this space. How can I get them in the direction and guide and advise them? And I think that's something that's not done in the SaaS space, that would make things so much better. Again, if it's not me, I know a guy, let me go find this person, introduce you, explain to them kind of what's going on, get you guys, situated or whatever, and then let y'all take it from there. I think there's not enough of that done.
I agree. Do you subscribe or do you think it's bogus, this best in class MSP, top quartile, 20% plus to the bottom line model? I mean, listen, this is just me regurgitating what's out there, right? Like, is this a thing or has people created a picture perfect, unattainable goal?
I think some of it is unattainable. And I think I think you need to have best for your MSP and best for your clients. I think that should be your best in class goal rather than trying to achieve something that somebody in a different MSP did in a different market or whatever. The guy that I consulted with in Brooklyn versus the guy that I had in Durango, Colorado, they are not going to be the same. Yeah. What is best for those people are very different things. Now, there's some of the numbers that come out there. I mean, I think it's definitely interesting to say this is best in class. This is like one of the big ones I always I want to hear about is the tech to endpoint ratio. Because there's so many things that affect that. And people love to throw that number out there. Best in class is, like every tech has, 750 endpoints. which looks really good on your bottom line. But are you killing your techs? I mean, at that number, I mean, is, do you have really high turnover? And again, sort of, there's certain numbers that I like to listen to and sort of digest. Can it make it be a goal? Like, hey, this is, we call them the BHAGs, big, hairy, unattainable goal. Is it something we can strive for? Can I use it as a benchmark? Say, okay, best in class is 750. We're sitting at like 150 now. So maybe, we're never going to get there, but let's see if we can get a little better next year than we can this year. Let's see if maybe we can have, instead of 150, we get to like 200, 215, again, to try to achieve those goals. Cause I think that's a huge mistake if you're constantly looking at that number versus having what I call baby steps. Try to make the baby steps for the goals that you're trying to achieve, because you have to show wins to your staff in order to get them to keep buying in on whatever it is that you're going to try to accomplish next. So if you've got this goal, best in class is 1 to 850, and we're sitting at 100, that is a really long stretch. So why don't we try to get from 100 to 125 next year, or 150, whatever it is, and make it a baby step. And then as you get closer, then you can be like, look at that. We are like right there for this best in class thing. And that will really like get all of your people excited about that.
So they're like stretch goals.
It is, but I think some of them you got to take with a grain of salt. Some of them, I think some of the numbers are fudged, because if you look at the math, that math is not mathing. I don't know how in the world you came up with this number, because if we do the math, it is literally impossible to get there. So some of them, I think you just kind of take them with a grain of salt. But again, I love listening when people talk about that and they do the metrics. Jay McBain is one of my favorite people to sit in on, because he always has some next level information data that he's able to give us. And then what little nugget or tidbit can I take out of that and then use that when I go on the road and I'm talking to these various MSPs that I talk to, kind of what little thing can I take out of that this is something that we can work towards together.
Okay. So now I've talked about this topic a lot,
Okay.
but I'm curious what your point of view is. So, very super profitable or really good customer experience. For some reason, these two things should parallel each other. They don't.
Yep.
Which then brings me into modern day, right? Like if I just go backwards just a little bit, there was, hey, I'm glass ceiling with my personnel. I can't get enough people to handle the clientele. So I'm going to start to outsource stuff. We had the Dells and the HPs and calling places that couldn't understand people on the other side of the phone. Just being honest, right? And
yes.
then we turned into, all right, well, if we can't outsource, let's bring that back and kind of what they call it insource, right? And like try and do that domestically, but still not your people. You're kind of using all this outside stuff. Can you cobble it together? And then it turned into now can we use this AI thing to like automate the front line, take the person out, use a machine to be the front line, save money that way. And like all of this is all the same conversation, different catch up, right? Like you're trying to water down your cost to service your customer, but your customer doesn't stay if their experience isn't good. How do we fix this?
That's a question that's been going on for a long time. And it's an interesting conversation, because pre-COVID, people wanted, and when I say people, like the MSPs I was working for and with, their clients wanted 24/7 support. I want to call at 2:00 in the morning, get somebody on the phone. So that's, I think, in my experience, we went through that. We're going to outsource out the wazoo. You can call, you can talk to some guy in another part of the world at 2 a.m., whatever, because my guys in Dallas, Texas are asleep. Post-COVID and during COVID, I saw a shift with people that I was working with specifically, that they wanted to go back to talking to people that work directly at that MSP.
Mm-hmm.
They were willing to say, I don't really need help at 2 a.m. It's unreasonable. It's whatever. And it gave them, I call it sort of like the warm fuzzies. They wanted to talk to people that were local, because a lot of the MSPs that we deal with, they're local. They're in a local town. Their clients are local. They run into them at the grocery store. Their kids go to the same school. They go to the same churches, all of that type of stuff. And it made them feel better to deal with people that were there. And I'm a huge proponent of that, because as the MSP, if I can help this client succeed, I can help better my entire community. If they grow, that means they have more jobs to offer. If they have more jobs to offer, that means that people that work in my community, again, are able to have careers and stay. They don't leave. They don't go somewhere else. Kids go to college. They end up staying there. Again, it's a cycle. But if again, MSPs have such impact on that. And I don't think a lot of them realize it. The outsourcing thing, I get it. I get that you want more to your bottom line, but some of the pushback that I will have on that with some of the MSPs is, number one, do you have the right clients? Do you have the right clients that value what you and your people are bringing to the table? Or do they just want some guy on the phone every 5 seconds to fix whatever? I would bet if we did some analysis on that client's probably not a good fit for you anymore. They are probably eating your lunch. They're probably making your, and not in more ways than one. Yes, maybe on the bottom line. And that's why you want to go outsourced, because again, they're upside down on their agreement. And if I outsource it and it's cheaper and it's whatever, but do you really need to keep that client? Are they the squeaky wheel that's just causing so many problems for your staff? They don't ever want to get on board with my QBRs. It's always a fight to get everything. I mean, everything's we're fighting over pennies constantly. Do we just need to let that client go at the end of the day? So maybe that's some of the option. As far as the AI stuff on the front end, I don't have a huge issue with that, especially for like the ticky-tack stuff, like, the password resets, setting up mail forwarding, that kind of junk. I don't really have a big deal on that one. But part of it is I don't think your clients should know that it's AI that's doing it. They still want the comfort of picking up the phone and calling me and saying, hey, Brooke, how's it going? And I'm like, hey, George, how are you doing? Oh my gosh, my printer's not working again, whatever. Oh man, let me remote in and let me get that fixed for you. Now, may I be using an AI tool to troubleshoot that printer and do it while I'm doing 3 other things? Yes. The client doesn't want to know. I think there's definitely, in our space, we're definitely more AI friendly than other people, but I think a lot of our clients, they are still very fearful of that. So even if it's AI doing it, maybe to solve the ticket or to get us to the point where we need to escalate or whatever, I still think they want a human person that's overseeing it, monitoring it, managing it, that type of thing.
So we're using AI as a back-end tool in this example. We're not eliminating the actual communication point where your customer is talking to an answering machine, with a computer plugged into the back of it, and they got to get frustrated before they get to the human being.
We all do it. I'm on the phone and I just keep saying customer support, customer support. I don't press the buttons. I don't do this stuff because I want to talk to a live person to fix whatever the problem is that I'm having. We all do it in various facets. And I think when you go past that point to where they don't have that human interaction anymore, I think that's where you really run the risk of losing clients, because they hired you because of you and your people. And again, that's going back to that initial thing I said at the beginning. There's 2 things that make every MSP different. It's the people that work for you and it's your clients. Those are the 2 differentiators. And if you start losing those, you're going to be in a really bad spot.
I agree. I agree. And I even argue that even if we fast forward 3 years from now and more of this technology is adopted and we experiment with it, that some people will be willing to pay the premium to not go down that lane as a customer.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like, hey, I want the VIP lane. Give me the red carpet. You going to charge me an extra 10, 15, 20%? I'm good with that.
I had an MSP that I worked with. We switched firewall vendors because when a firewall goes down at an MSP, I mean, it's dead. I know it is. I don't want to argue about it. I don't want to troubleshoot for 3.5 days. I want to call somebody up and say, hey, firewall model XYZ took a, I need you to overnight me one, and I want to see one on my doorstep the next morning. We switched vendors because this particular vendor for that firewall, now I'm overseas. I've got to go through this whole process. I've got to press the buttons on the phone and the whatever. And it's literally a day and a half, 2 days later. So, okay, cool. But now that means I've got to carry firewalls spares on my shelf. That goes on my bottom line. So now I've got to constantly keep all of this equipment back there on the shelf. Somebody's got to pull it off. We got to update the firmware. Again, it's all this stuff that goes into it. I would rather pay more. Am I really paying more? In the long run, probably not, because I want to talk to a person. I want that red carpet treatment. So I've done that in an MSP before. And I think 100%, there's a client that I worked with he was in Brooklyn. People would call it a boutique MSP. I don't think so. He had solid clients. He was small, didn't want to grow. He was perfectly happy where he was at. 0 turnover. Techs were happy. Clients were happy. And it was calling people on the phone and talking to people on the phone. There was nothing automated. We didn't go through and put in a chat request or whatever. They picked up the phone. They called the text fixed the problem. They had a site. That dude was wildly successful. He made so much money. But he charged a premium. He was an expensive MSP, but you got that treatment and you got the one-on-one. Everybody knew everybody again, and he had no turnover. I think I helped him for like 1.5 years, 2 years. Not one single person left, quit, got fired, anybody, none of that stuff. And people were like chomping at the bit and asking, are you hiring new engineers? Again, he grew a little bit, from time to time, but he wasn't like all the other MSPs. I got to grow by X. I got to grow by Y. I got to do this. And again, he was wildly successful, made a ton of money. He was happy. Nobody was up in the middle of the night doing whatever, but he charged a premium. He was a premium MSP and he charged good money for it. And there were literally clients waiting to get in the door.
Premium MSP. I like that. We're gonna talk more about that on another call. Brooke, wow, you are just an encyclopedia of experience. This is awesome.
I had a great time today.
I wish we had another hour. I got more. I got more questions, but that's cool. We'll do this at the bar somewhere down the line. We'll do another one of these. Where do people find you? They want to pick your brain because it sounds like you're open to helping people, which is
absolutely
awesome.
Always willing to help.
And where do people then find more information about your company? And if you want to send them somewhere, here's the time.
Yep. So Liongard.com. You can go to our website. I will tell everybody we just dropped some new stuff today. So there's some exciting new stuff out there with asset inventory that we've got going on. One of my favorite things about Liongard is we have Liongard Academy. You can literally go get Liongard certifications for all the different pathways that you can take within the company. You can always email me, brooke@liongard.com. We are about to hit the road like everybody else, so we're going to be at a lot of shows. The first big one we're going to be at is going to be Ride a Boom. We'll have a lot of people there for that, so definitely stop by the booth and see us. Again, go visit the website, reach out to me on LinkedIn, shoot me an email. Happy to help anybody however I can, always.
That's awesome. So guys, if you're listening to this podcast, Brooke spells her name Brook. So nothing special there.
Yeah, no
Don't mess up the spelling. Last name Lee, Lee, simple as can be. And Liongard is spelled, if you haven't seen it before, Liongard. There's no U in there. Liongard.com. Brooke, we should definitely do more of this.
I had a great time. This was super fun. We should bring other people in and grill them. It'll be great.
We will. Maybe we'll. I saw your buddy Coach on there in the back end. We'll bring him in on the next one.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
And David Tulip. I mean, that's always a good.
Yeah, David. He's always fun. He's one of those. He knows a ton of stuff. He's been in the business for a while, so he's always somebody we can get some good debate going on.
Oh yeah, we brought him over to Philly, gave him a little bit of the non-UK experience. That was good.
There you go. I'm sure he loved that.
That was a good time. Guys, this session was absolutely recorded. Go back and rewind and listen to some of this. I want you to walk out of this with, I took away people. Brooke's really good at people. Seems like better than I ever was. That's good. 2, premium MSP. There's a thread here. I like this. I would rather be the guy that people are waiting around the corner in line to get to than the next guy on the block. I think there's something there.
Okay.
We're gonna pull on that.
Maybe we'll do something on that one. We'll have a conversation at the bar, see if we can expand on that one.
I like it. I like it a lot. So you'll find this session posted later on today. MSPinitiative.com under sessions. I'll link you to the podcast, YouTube page. Whatever format you like it in, it's there. Brooke, thank you for spending an hour with us. Can't wait to see you in person.
All right. Bye.
Bye, guys.